Good morning and welcome to AB Talks. I'm here with Stuart Harrison, the CEO of Emrill. Good morning, Stuart. Thank you for being here with us today. So, Stuart, the pandemic has changed just about everything about the way the world operates. Can you tell me a little bit about how it's changed what Emrill does in the facilities management space?
Yeah, surprisingly, it didn't actually change that much because we were already all about world-class cleaning services, world-class technical services, making sure that air changes in rooms were done well, HEPA filters in certain environments like hospitals and things. So what we found was the way that it changed was that our clients became more interested in what we were doing, but we didn't really change that much. World-class hygiene is world-class hygiene, so it doesn't get better than that. So we had quite a robust business continuity team, and once we pulled the trigger on that, everything just flowed as usual.
You mentioned that customers now cared about what you were doing. Did your messaging change to them? Did the way that you interact with your customers have to change?
Yeah, of course. So usually what happens is, I always say if you walk into a mall, you don't notice the air conditioning unless it's too hot or too cold. So normally they don't ask about things like that. But because of the pandemic, clients were now, they had an element of education around things like air conditioning. So they would say to us, what are you doing with our air conditioning? And we would explain to them. So the messaging with the client was they wanted to be more informed. They wanted to be sure that we were adhering to certain regulations, whereas before they just took that for granted and they probably wouldn't ask so many questions.
Mm-hmm. And, even pre-pandemic, sustainability was a hot and emerging topic. And I wanted to ask what Emrill has done on getting their buildings to be green and sustainable, especially given in the UAE, one of the big things for companies is making sure that buildings are sustainable and efficient.
Yeah, well, we started that really early on. So, 6 or 7 years ago, we started making buildings smarter. We pioneered one of the first, if not the first, privately funded energy conservation project. So that was down at the marina, the 6 towers down at the marina. And we've done quite a lot of publicity on that. And that started just over 6 years ago. So month on month, we were saving 25% of their electricity bills through retrofitting, changing the algorithms in the building management system and things like that.
And looking forward to sustainability and greater sustainability, what's next for Emrill on the agenda? Is it more retrofitting or is it, completely redesigning existing systems?
Well, there's a bit of both and somewhere in between as well. So there's a whole load of new technology that's coming out. So, you leave the building and the building recognizes that you've left your apartment. It turns the air conditioning off, but it keeps the set points, and then it recognizes facial recognition as you walk back in at the end of the day. And by the time you've gone up to your route, in the elevator, it's already turned your air conditioning on, and it's put all your set points back on, your lighting and all that kind of stuff. There's the other side of it in terms of sustainability, waste management, things like that. So I'm currently working with the municipality and with the government on things like refrigerant gases and putting in measures in place to make sure that we're recovering all the refrigerant gases and we're not letting the air escape into atmosphere and things. So there's a whole plethora of things ranging from building technology all the way through to sustainable practices whilst we're going about our work.
And you mentioned sustainable technology in there, and I asked this question to a lot of people. And, the technology is fascinating and it's innovative and it's fast evolving. But a lot of times I hear that it's not at a place where we are at economies of scale yet. So it's just too expensive to implement. Have you seen that in the facilities management, or is the facilities management technology, maybe more advanced and that it is more affordable?
No, I think I'm not one of these gaming people, but my kid plays, PC games and things. Those guys seem like that they're at the forefront of technology. So VR kits and all this kind of stuff. We're not a tech company; we're an FM company. So we use tech when it's applicable to our business. I took a quote from somebody else. I was at a conference and the guy opened the conference by saying, I'm not interested in technology. And then he added, unless it helps my customers or me do my job better. So I think that's a good position to be in. So we don't put technology in for the sake of it just because it came out. Yeah, so there's technologies like blockchain that's very good at doing something. And we did get about a year or so ago people come into our business saying we can implement blockchain. I was saying, yeah, okay, and it'll do something, but it's just not required at this point in time. We don't need to encrypt our data with blockchain technology. What we need to do is make sure that your tap isn't leaking or that your air conditioning works properly, and then we need to record that in some sort of system. But there's certain bits of technology that just aren't required, and there's other things that cost as well. So there might be a cost to fitting technology in your building so that you get facial recognition, it remembers your set points and all that stuff that I talked about before. But would you pay extra for that, or are you happy just to go in and turn your air conditioning on yourself? So it's trying to find a balance with it.
That makes sense. So you guys are kind of in a good position where you can adopt the technology as it becomes affordable, but you're not really pressed to do it for...
Well, you say that, but sometimes we are pressed. So, for example, I was talking to one of our clients and they said, how are you using robotics? And I said, should we be using robotics? So what kind, artificial intelligence, what is it that you're expecting? If you go home this evening and you find a problem with your sink or with your dripping tap.
My fridge is not working right now.
So yeah, if your refrigerator isn't working, do you expect to make a phone call and a robot turns up or do you expect some kind of artificial intelligence to fix your refrigerator? Or do you expect a guy with a tool bag to come and fix it? So
I expect a guy with a tool bag, but if the robot could do it, I'd be okay with that.
Well, that's where you said, are we ready for that kind of technology yet? And I don't think we are. I don't think it's going to be more than 50 years until artificial intelligence can get anywhere close to what a person can do in terms of organizing things. So I think at the moment we're still at that guy coming to your door and fixing your tap. But what we can do in the background is make sure that the scheduling is right. So we get the right guy with the right tools and the right parts to your house to fix your refrigerator, rather than the guy turning up maybe and not quite knowing what he's doing, or maybe he doesn't have the right spare parts or the right tools. So there's back of house stuff that we can do, but we're not at the point yet where you're going to be greeted at the door by a robot or something.
Maybe in 5 decades. I'll look forward to that. And we've been talking a lot about tech here, but how does Emrill use new technologies and innovations to deliver the services that it's delivering? What kind of tech are you focusing on right now?
Yeah, so all the key things like IoT, Internet of Things, big data, the tech companions. So that means the applications that a guy can use on smart devices that he can move around with. Internet of Things just essentially means that everything's connected, and we've actually just employed a data scientist so that he can capture all those data points. You can't really make any really fundamental key decisions about your business unless you've got all the data at hand. And there's so much data out there now. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but it's something like every day the IoT captures thousands of bits of data about every individual interaction. So we've got a guy that's looking into that for us and developing that. And then that'll, I guess, help us put together a better business plan.
It sounds like this is the data scientist's job, but how do you make sense of all those data points to then look at them and say, this is what we can do with these data points?
Well, what we do is, so we've got a continuous improvement manager, then I've got a technical expert, and then I've got the business analyst or data scientist guy. Now, those three together form the perfect team. So the data guy comes in and says, hey, I've got all this data. The tech guy can have a look at it, and he's the technical expert. And the continuous improvement guy can then look at the whole picture and then start to put plans in place to either address any gaps or use what we do better or develop it that way.
Okay, and where are you at on incorporating self-driving vehicles?
We don't use any at present, aside from some of these smaller cleaning devices that you can put down and they'll clean within a room. A funny story: I was reading the BBC News the other day, and one had escaped from a building in the UK, so it was on the run. I don't know where it had gone. So we do use small devices.
Sure, the sidewalk was clean.
Yeah, well, they couldn't find it, so it somehow realized that there was a door there and thought maybe it should investigate that, and off it went. So they put an APB out on this cleaning machine that had run away. So we use things like that, but we don't use, for example, self-driving cars that are out on the road. First of all, we haven't seen a demand for it because people don't trust that type of technology yet. And secondly, it's still not as sophisticated as a human brain. So where people are very critical on areas being cleaned or that kind of thing, duct cleaning robots, they're in use. So you can, because it's a very well defined space. So you can put something in and it'll clean that perfectly. So we use things like that, and that kind of self-drives pool cleaning. So you put a robot in a pool and you tell it the dimensions of the pool, or it finds the dimensions by moving around. And once it's geofenced or mapped that area, it'll clean it perfectly. But it's within a confined space. So we're not at the point where we're sending vehicles out on their own yet.
The pool robot isn't going to crawl out of the pool and...
Probably not, no.
Anyway, so, with this new technology, we talked about the robot that escaped. What are some of the challenges in the facilities management sector with getting them implemented?
Well, I think challenges is people are much more, challenges over the last 2 years, for sure. People are much more interested now in what's going on. So like I said at the beginning, they're more interested in what are we doing and to what standards. I mean, I always say that we've got 4 things in facilities management that we're interested in. What have we got? What do we want to do to it? To what standards, and how will we record ourselves? So they're the 4 things in facilities management. And it used to be that as long as the client was happy in their environment, like this room, for example, you probably wouldn't ask questions about the facilities management. That's changed now. So you might enter this room and you might take a look around. You might say, who cleans this and to what standards? Has it been disinfected? Is it a safe environment to operate in? So those, I guess, are the key challenges that we see now, aside from good old-fashioned standards, technical standards, hygiene, cleanliness, all those kind of things.
Okay. And then you mentioned, where do we want to go in there? So looking forward, what is Emrill's focus for 2022?
Well, good old-fashioned, what we like to say at Emrill, it's a bit like, I saw a quote on the TV. There was a guy doing an interview, and he was a special forces soldier, and he said, we just do soldiering, but we do it to a higher standard than the regular army. Well, Emrill does FM, but we do it to a higher standard than everybody else. So that's our brand, that's our trademark. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, when they go into a building that we look after, they can just see a difference. And I said, that's what we do. That's our USP, our unique selling point. So our aim for 2022 is to continue to do good old-fashioned facilities management, building management, I guess. It used to be called maintenance, but we do a little bit more because we manage the whole environment. But we do it to a higher standard and to, higher technical standards, higher cleaning standards, and you can see the difference.
And looking just slightly outside Emrill, I guess, but you mentioned that consumers are now much more conscious. What other trends have you seen, and what other ones are you on the lookout for?
Well, things like environmental sustainability. So they're asking us for example, we might remove a fluorescent fitting. Now, people, again, wouldn't ask questions, but now they know they contain mercury and things like that. So they might ask questions. How do you dispose of these? That's something that we've noticed. People are just being more switched on. And because it's Dubai as well, they expect world-class standards regardless of where they are or what type of environment they're in. So it's just a more, I guess you could say the client is just more aware of their surroundings, more aware of sustainability and environmental situations.
And then I think my last question will be, so you guys are in the UAE now, and I know that you're perhaps looking at expansion across the GCC or out into the GCC. What can you tell me about Emrill's expansion plans?
Well, in 2019, we did have quite an aggressive expansion plan to expand across the GCC. Unfortunately, at the end of 2019, the pandemic hit us, and it meant that just logistically, it was just challenging to move people around. So we still, we've got a consultancy arm, and we still look at those regions. I mean, I know for a fact, I've worked all over the world. I worked in America, I worked in the UK, I've worked in the Middle East, and I know that we can compete anywhere in the world with what we do. So our chairman's very forward thinking, and we were talking about global expansion, but it has to be done sensibly rather than just rushing out. So the GCC expansion is still very much on the cards, but it's just more challenging now because of the logistics of moving around with the COVID pandemic, which hopefully will start to ebb away.
And what about expansion in the UAE? Are you looking at expanding your portfolio here this year?
Well, we do work all across. So Sharjah, in Abu Dhabi, in all the other Emirates as well. So we are active in those places, and we're building those relationships as we go.
All right, great. Well, Stuart, I think that's all the time we have for today, and I hope to see you next time on AB Talks.
Thank you.